Hey, beauty friends, it's Meredith from Beadalon. Welcome to today's class. I'm actually modeling our class project for today. I'm not wearing quite the right neckline or the right complementary necklaces for it, but I do kind of, if you have the right neckline, it's a very, very flattering and interesting design, a little bit different than my usual style. And I'm really looking forward to teaching it today. Let me take it off and I'll put it a little bit closer to the camera so that everybody can see. I'm using a hook clasp, which is generally the easiest clasp to get off, unless you're me this afternoon, apparently. But this is what we are going to be making. So a horseshoe shape that many of you are probably familiar with. And then just a couple of my own special touches around with it as well. So once again, I am Meredith Roddy from Beadalon and Artistic Wire. If this is your first class with me, welcome. I'm seeing a lot of very familiar names over in the chat for the live participants. So it's nice to see people who come back again and again. If you are watching us on the replay on the Michael's YouTube channel, definitely go over and check out all of the classes that Beadalon, Artistic Wire, and all of the other amazing makers offer through the Michael's Community Classroom. There is a ton to learn, especially here in the holiday season when we're like, oh my gosh, I have all of these gifts to give. I want to make all of these gifts, but what am I going to do? And all of a sudden you get this crazy creative block. Hopefully today's project might help get you through that creative block and be able to create some pretty easy but pretty special classes or special projects for your friends and loved ones. One of the other things that we are going to be talking about today is substitutions. So this project has very specific beads that it calls for, and those beads are mentioned in the instructions that Yvette will post as I start getting going, and that were sent with the with your registration. But one of the things that I struggle with, and we as beaders probably struggle with, is, well, I don't have those exact beads. I don't have that exact size. And this is one of those projects that can help kind of exercise that substitution muscle and get you thinking about different things to substitute. Whenever I'm teaching classes, I try to mention different things that you can use in place of the project or of the products that are called for in the ingredients list. But this project in particular really lends itself nicely to beads you might have on hand, a different color palette, different little tweaks here and there, so that you can take this design and make it your own. All right, so I want to close that part there. So, okay, now I can see everybody's comments coming through on the chat. Fantastic. All right, Chanel, I think we're ready to go ahead and take that overhead camera. Let me make sure that I have it nice and adjusted so that we can go ahead and get into talking about the materials that I am choosing for our project today. I'm still seeing me spotlighted. There we go. All right, perfect. So this is one of those projects. I got a lot of stuff on the beading mat, right? There are a lot of different things, mostly because I'm using a lot of different beads, and I pulled out a different palette to work with for our project today. So as I mentioned in the materials list, and Yvette did just post it in the comments, but if you're watching after the fact, it will be posted underneath the video. I mean, you can download the instruction sheet for that. But I did change out from the Howlite beads and the coral beads to what is probably a fairly familiar palette to you right now if you've taken some of my classes, for these gold beads and these beautiful blue impression jasper stone beads. So I had purchased for a different color palette project a whole bunch of these beads, and I didn't have as many of these left. So one of the great things is the ability to change over our materials to create the same project, same instructions, same everything, but different colors. I am still going to be using the same gold 14 gauge artistic wire. And this is, of course, is out of the package, but if it came in the package, it would look like this. This happens to be the silver color, or the tarnish resistant silver, I should say. But we're going to be keeping in the gold color palette. We will also need some 24 gauge gold German style wire for doing our wire wrapping. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, and you can see I have this, it's actually already been open, but one of the things that I always try to do is keep the package with the gauge on it with my artistic wire, so that I always know what the gauge is for the wire. I'm pretty good now at looking at the wire and knowing what gauge it is. But if you haven't worked for a company that manufactures wire for 15 years, you might want to keep your original cards and keep it in with the packaging. It's just a lot easier to keep everything organized that way. Additionally, you'll need all of your tools, your crimper tool, nipper tool, chain nose and round nose pliers. The other special tool that we're going to need today is a bracelet bending pliers. So this is my bracelet bending pliers, but in Michael's, there's a great Impress Art bracelet bending pliers that are it's the same tool. And we're going to see how this guy works. This is one of my favorite tools. It's very specific, but also you can use it for a lot of different things. Okay, I'm just looking over my materials. Let's make sure I haven't left anything important out. Of course, we'll need some crimp tubes that I have here and a clasp for the end of our necklace. And I think that's pretty much it for now. So the first thing that we are going to do in our project is we are going to make the pendant. Okay, and in order to do that, we're going to cut a 6-inch or 15 centimeter piece of this 14 gauge artistic wire. Now this artistic wire is very heavy duty. It's 14 gauge, it's non-tarnished brass, it's very heavy duty wire, which is why I chose it for making my pendant. Now, one of the things that we need to do, of course, is to straighten this, right? The end of my wire has gotten a little wonky. So I can do that in a couple of different ways. The first is, just as a quick aside, if you've got this guy, this is the artistic wire straightener tool. I don't believe that it is listed in the materials list, but always a good item to have on hand. And the way that this guy works is you just put it over the wire like this and pull. Now my end here is a little bit unsalvageable or unsavable. So I'm just going to go ahead and nip that off. It's a lot better to go ahead and just cut off that little extra bit of wire that's all wonky rather than try to save it. Sometimes the wire is not able to be saved. Okay, so I'm going to just run my wire right here to straighten it out. And I have a little piece of tape that I use as my ruler, but I'm actually, for the sake of keeping my camera in the place that I want it to be, I'm going to pull my ruler out here and I'm going to measure about 6 inches. That was what I decided was the right size for what I wanted to use. So we've got 6 inches here, and I'm just using my my good nippers. Another really good tool for cutting this very strong wire is your memory wire cutters. So that's another thing. And I might use these if I have any more cuts to make. The memory wire cutters are a really, really good tool to use for cutting this really heavy duty wire. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this straight wire into a horseshoe shape. No problem. So to do that, I need my round nose pliers, and I'm going to turn a loop on one side. What I'm going to do first, just for funsies, is I'm going to take a permanent marker and I'm going to make a mark about halfway up on my pliers. So then that's how I'm going to know that both of my loops will be exactly the same size. If you have a stepped bail making plier, awesome tool to use as well, but not everybody has a stepped bail making plier. So the quick Sharpie trick on your pliers works well also. So all I'm doing is I'm holding this right in the very end of my pliers, and I'm bending a circle around. Okay, so it's a P circle. I didn't break the neck as you would if you were making a wrapped loop or a simple loop. So right, easy peasy. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. And I want to make sure that that loop on the other end is facing the same direction. So I've got a little bit of a bend in my wire here. So I'm just going to kind of warm that up with my fingers and pull it through. And then I'm going to follow that same mark here on the other end. And I'm going to, oops, using the mark that I had there previously for a different project. I'm going to use this mark and turn a loop as well. Okay, so I have like a little mustachioed looking piece right there. Now what I'm going to do is with my bracelet bending pliers, I want to find roughly the middle point. And I want to find roughly the middle point so that my loops are going to, just trying to make sure that I have that well centered in the screen. The middle point so that my loops are going to be facing outward. So I'm just double checking to make sure that I'm doing this so that my loops are facing the right way. They are. Okay, I got a little turned around for a second there. So all I'm going to do, I think now, see, I did get turned around. Oh my goodness, what did I? All right, perfect. So now what I want to do is I want to gently move my tool around and around and around, making this into a nice round part on one side. And then I'm going to come back the other side and I'm going to make it a nice round part on the other side. And I'm going to bop my camera up just a little bit and try to reestablish my wrists. So if you don't have bracelet bending pliers, another great tool for this is a pill bottle or a mandrel. Or what else could we use for this? A jar. And I'm wondering if I think I ended up, it says 6 inches in my instructions, but it looks like my, the one that I chose for this example is more like 5 inches. So I think we're going to stick with 6 inches though. I like the idea of doing one that's a little bit bigger. So I'm just moving my plier around and around. And what is also happening here is this is work hardening this. So we've got 14 gauge brass wire, right? Which is already pretty heavy duty. And now by doing this, what I'm doing is I'm compressing my molecules so that they are hardening even more on that wire. And I'm also bringing the horseshoe more into a horseshoe shape. So using a pill bottle is a great way to do it. Using a jar is a great way to do it. By doing that, you lose the that extra little bit of work hardening, but not really the end of the world. All right, I just want to make sure my piece is nice and the way that I want it to be. And these pliers, you can find them in Michael's under the Impress Art brand. And of course, I'm using the Beadalon bracelet bending pliers here for class today, but they are available in Michael's. They're not to fret, and they're really good for making bracelets, but also for a lot of different uses. I find that I reach for these more than I necessarily would think that I would. Okay. So now we're going to take some of that 24 gauge wire, and again, I keep it in a little little Ziploc bag with the number, so I know that it's 24 gauge. And if you don't have German style wire, artistic wire in 24 gauge will work as well. But there is no gold color artistic wire at Michael's, which is why I'm using the German style wire. And just out of habit, I generally will use my nylon jaw pliers against that wire just to give it a nice little straighten. And also, just another quick tip for when you take your German style wire out of the packaging, there will be 2 zip ties here. I generally leave one of the zip ties on so that it keeps the wire much tidier and it's much easier to manage. Otherwise, this is gonna, all unravel and be unruly. But when you keep the one zip tie on, you should be good to go. And then you just ease it out and you're going to take about 2 feet. So 1 foot, 2 feet of the wire and snip that off. If you need a little bit more, you can always add a little bit more. And then of course, if you need less, you can always use less. I'm just going to pull out probably a little bit more than I need, and I'm going to snip that off. And now, why my piece here is turning a little wonky, but I can make that work for me. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one end and leave, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches of a tail, and wrap this around up near. I'm not really super thrilled with my camera angle today. Let me see if I can fix that so that we can all see a little bit better. I need to get my hand in here though. Let's move that up a little bit more. Okay. And I like, when I'm doing my wire wrapping, to use my tools rather than my fingers. I find that it gives me tighter wraps. You might find just using your fingers is perfectly well enough, but I really like using my tools to pull those wraps around. Generally, when I'm making wrap loops, that's how I'll do it. It's easier for me, and it might be easier for you also. I'm just coming in here, I snipped it off, and I'm going to tuck my little tail in. Make sure we're all still able to see. And now I am going to do simple, pretty easy wire wrapping all around the outside, probably something that you guys have seen before. But one of the things that I am going to do is I'm actually going to substitute out, instead of using these 4mm Howlite beads, I'm going to substitute out, because I cannot get enough of this color palette, these 4mm. I always need to double check. Are they Jasper or are they agate? Impression Jasper beads. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these off. And I think it still gives kind of a fun holiday palette to it. It's just a little different, right? Just a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is, here we go. I'm going to start with one of the 3mm red. And these are 3mm red coral beads. And I actually have a little card for those. So I will show them. Coral round bamboo. And it does say that they are 4mm. They're a little smaller, but that's the part number right there. Okay. So I'm going to do, and again, my little end here is a little wonky. So I'm just going to snip that off. Sometimes for me, it's better to just snip the ends of the wire off rather than try to straighten them. But okay, I'm sorry, friends. I got to move this back up so I don't keep hitting it. Sometimes projects can get really, really in there, but then other times I need a little bit more room. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this bead right along the edge there, and I'm going to lash it to my wire form by wrapping this around once twice and thrice. So I've got 3 wraps at the start, 1 bead, and 3 wraps afterwards. All right, you know what I think I need to do, friends? I think I figured out what the problem is. I need all of this stuff to do the project, but we need a nice clean background to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to come down here to the blue bead mat. Pull that a little bit up. Sometimes the angle works out really easily. Other times we need to fiddle with it a little bit, but I think we finally got it right. Okay, so now I started with the red, and this is going to move. So if this moves on you, don't fret. It will move until we get a couple more rounds going. So now I'm going to add that blue bead, and I love that these impression jasper have a little bit of brown in them. They have some gold flecks in them. It just makes for a really interesting bit of color. All right, and so now you can see my 3 wraps are not quite as close together as I would like them to. I'm just going to show that wire who's boss. Bring those together, a little squeeze action there. And put that as it should be. Okay, and so now I'm just going to continue to do that. I'm going to add 1 red bead, and I'm going to add 1 blue bead all the way around. And if my wire starts getting a little wonky, that's okay. I'm going to put everything back as it should be as we're going along. Okay, so once again, just holding my beads where I want them to go and wrapping around once, twice, and thrice. Now, as I'm doing this, because it will take me a little time, and I did not cooking show style this part of the project, and I apologize a little bit for that, but I also think that sometimes it's good to see in real time how long or short the project takes to make, because especially now in this season of giving, as we are trying to get our last minute holiday gifts made for our friends and family, it is good to be able to gauge, well, okay, if this project is going to take me an hour to do, and I have 6 gifts to make, how many episodes of New Girl will I be able to watch? Yes, I'm rewatching The New Girl. That's one of my favorite shows of all time, and it makes me so happy. Okay, so keep going. What I would love to know as we're doing this, not only for me, but for other people who are joining us live for class today, what are some of the holiday gifts that you are making? Are you doing mostly earrings for your friends and loved ones? Bracelets your go-to projects? Or like me, do you gravitate more toward making necklaces? I should be more of a quick and easy, down and dirty earring maker. But I realized today, I was actually thinking about this, that since I don't wear earrings very often, and if I do, they're just, you know, a pearl stud. I don't often wear beaded earrings, mostly because I have a really hard time finding earrings that are comfortable for my ears, but those are my issues. And so I find that I mostly make necklaces because I find that bracelets can be difficult to size for people, because wrist size isn't always indicative. And you've heard me say this before, if you've taken my classes, wrist size is not always indicative of person size. But similarly, not everybody likes wearing their bracelets the same way. And so I like, for example, a really tight bracelet. I don't know what happened here with this wrap. It got a little wonky. But other people like wearing their bracelets really loose. So I have actually fixed that problem for me by making almost all of my bracelets adjustable. And is that a class that we just did, or is that a class that's coming up? I lose track sometimes of whether it's classes that we have just done or if they are classes that are coming up. I think it's a class that's coming up, is adjustable jewelry. I think we're doing that one in January. But that's really helpful for me for when not only when I make bracelets for myself, but also when I make bracelets for other people. But you know what I found, which is really interesting, and I am speeding up my wrapping, so it's not going to be quite as precise, but I might actually end up in the final analysis liking how that looks. And a very good comment has come through on the comments as well, which is to make, to put a little extra chain in on your necklaces to make those adjustable as well. Because as hearkening back to the very beginning of class today, sometimes you want your necklace to fall in different places. Sometimes you want it to be a little bit longer if you're wearing maybe a turtleneck or a high-necked sweater, or a little lower if you have a lower cut necklace or I'm sorry, a lower cut neckline or anything in between, right? So always a good idea to make things adjustable. And that is going to be the theme of the class I'm pretty sure it's in January. I know it's one of the upcoming classes that we are hard at work on. I cannot believe that it is December already and we're coming up on, is it actually 2 years of these classes? Eva, have we been doing this for 2 years? I feel like the year 2000 is just such a wash that we've just kind of jumped over it. And not even really address the fact that it happened. Oh, I just noticed a comment. Usually I don't talk about the comments in particular in live classes, but Paula said she made the wine doilies from the wine doily class that I taught to give as gifts. That was a great class. If you did not get a chance to see the wine doily class, I definitely recommend going back on the Michael's YouTube channel to check that one out. That was a really, really fun class to do. Totally inspired by Yvette, by the way. We are a good team, she and I. She says, make this, and then I figure out how to make it. All right, so now I've come to the end and I'm just gonna snip that off, easy peasy. And I had way more wire than I needed, but always better to have more wire than less. Because while it is possible to add more wire, it's always better to do this part in one fell swoop. And so I started and I added with a red on either side. And you can see just by substituting out that different color of beads, super different, right? Same style, same project, same technique, but a really different look. So now what we need to do is we're going to make I think this is one of my absolute favorite things to make, is a knotted head pin. And then we're going to make this little part here in the middle. So to make the knotted head pin, we're going to need a couple of different tools. And we are going to need that 24 gauge German style wire. So we're going to need about 3 inches. That's fair. Probably more than you need, but again, I cannot stress enough how more wire is better. When I first started beading, I would be very conservative in my wire use, but I always found that having more wire was better than not having enough. So on the very, very tip of this wire, with the very, very tip of my round nose pliers, I'm going to make a coil that is 3 loops long. So I'm not making a spiral, I'm making a coil. And let's see if we can challenge the phone to get really, really close here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a coil. So I'm going to go around 1 time, all the way on the very, very tip of those pliers, 2 times, and then a third time. And I know that I have gone around a third time because where my wire is starting and where my wire is ending is at the same place. Now what I'm going to do is with my thumb, I'm going to push that wire at a 90-degree angle. So I haven't taken this off the tool yet, pushing it up at a 90-degree angle. Now I'm going to take it off the tool, but I'm going to do that by pinching it in between my thumb and my forefinger and take my tool out. And my wire is now facing to the left. I'm going to flip it so it's going to be facing to the right. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this around so that my tip is being threaded through that coil. So I've got a little teardrop here now. And with my fingers, I'm going to pull this not super tight, because what I want to do is use those nylon jaw pliers that I mentioned in the beginning and my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to pull that little coil against the nylon jaw pliers and tighten it up. Not too tight, because I don't want to pull it so tight that it snaps off, which can happen. This is 26 gauge wire. Even though it's brass wire, it can still break because it's very, very thin wire. But if you've done it all right, and sometimes it takes a little practice, you'll have this cute little knotted head pin here. If you have a regular head pin and you want to use that, that works too. But I think it's just really fun to make that knotted head pin. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack some of the gold beads from the sworn. I grabbed the smaller. Oh, I did. Okay. I knew I had this. I knew I grabbed the right ones for. Why aren't they here? Okay. That's what happens when you take everything out of camera. These are the graduated, why am I not finding my words this afternoon? These all come together. So you get all 4 sizes and they all come together on one card, which is awesome. Okay, so I have done here just the biggest to the smallest 4 beads. I reserve the right to take one off or add one if I need to, because what we're doing is we're creating this dangle here down in between. It may or may not be too long. I don't think it's going to be. And those of you who know me know I like to live dangerously. So I'm going to make a little wrapped loop right here at the top. And hope for the best. That's what I like to do. I like to measure, cut, and hope for the best. But those of you who know me know that. All right, and then we just need to tuck a little end in. I actually think I did a pretty good job with that. All right, so now what we need to do, that's going to be no problem. That's what happens when you make it way a little bit too big. But I don't think it's too big. I think it's actually, I like it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do this part with beading wire. I'm not sure if I mentioned in our materials in the very beginning. If I neglected to, I apologize. We're also going to be needing some 7-strand, and this is satin gold, a 1/5 wire. I chose this because I like the color. I like how the color goes with the materials that I am working with. And because I'm going to see this wire right here in the front, I wanted to make sure that it went with the color scheme of my project. So that's why I chose the satin gold rather than say bright or just any old wire that I happen to have on hand. And I'm just double checking to see what size I mentioned, and it's 4 inches. So we're going to go ahead and cut a 4-inch piece, which again, I think it's going to be more than we need. And I'm going to add a little bit because you know me, I like to have way more wire. And now all I need to do is come in here and use my crimp bead. And again, I'm glossing over some of the steps that I know that we already know from taking many of these Michael's classes. But if you are still not quite 100% on your crimping, I definitely recommend going back. And I've recommended this many times, but I feel like I can't I can't recommend it enough. There was a class that we did called something to the effect of 5 things you should never do while making beaded jewelry. And it goes over all of this, why I chose the wire, why I chose a specific crimp bead, how I'm doing the crimping. So if you need a refresher, a little brush up on your crimping skills, I definitely recommend going back and checking that one out. But again, I'm just making sure that my wires aren't crossed, and I'm doing my 3-step crimping process. Just want to pause for a moment, make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing also. So in the front, in the back, and in the front, and recognizing that many people don't do that front part, but it's actually recommended by the original designer and developer of the crimp tool. All right, so now what I want to do, I'm just going to snip this extra little part off, not worry about tucking him in or anything. Just really doesn't matter. And now what I want to do is I'm going to thread on. We're going to start with 3 of the blue, and then we're going to eyeball it from there. And again, since we're doing some substituting, since this is kind of an organic project, I might need to do 4 on each side. I definitely don't need to do 2 on each side, but always things to think about when you are modifying a pattern, when you're making something your own, and thinking about how you want it to lie and how you want everything to go in the end. I'm just thinking here to myself whether or not, yeah, I think 3, I think 4. We're going to go with 4 and then we'll see. I'm going to put 4 here, and then 1 here, and then 4 more. One of the things that I've been challenging myself to do more is mix my metals. I don't know if that is something that you beady friends are challenged by. If you're like, oh, of course I can mix my metals, no problem. But for this specific project, I'm like, it's all gold. All right, so I was right. The 4 beads with the dangle in the middle, and then the 4 beads. I like how that looks. 3 is going to be way too small, and I don't want it to dangle down too long, or yeah, to be too long. All right, so I'm going to grab another crimp tube from over here, and I'm going to go ahead and crimp here. And again, we've done a bunch of classes breaking down kind of the stringing part of this. And if we have a little bit of extra time at the end, I might slow it back down, but I want to make sure that we get to finish all of our stringing for this project, which is coming down the home stretch. This is the hardest part. So for my crimping, I'm coming in the front and I'm going in the back, and then coming back in the front. And I love how a little wire work, a little crimping in a non-traditional way makes for a really interesting pendant, right? So crimping, normal crimping that you would do when you were making jewelry. There we go. A little wire work that you would also do when making jewelry, but put together in a little bit of maybe a way that you hadn't thought of before, or maybe you hadn't done before. If you wanted to even get fancier still, you could come in here and put some crimp covers on top of these crimp tubes, especially if your crimper or your crimping skills aren't the best. You could also use some wire guardians here to make it an even more finished looking design. Okay, so now what we need to do is we're going to add the rest of our beaded design, right? Where did my original go? Here we go. So we've done our middle part, not too shabby. And that was what, 25 minutes with lots of talking in between. So now all we need to do to finish up our design is to do these two strong parts on either end. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 2 more pieces of beading wire, and we're going to make them 10 inches each. If you want your necklace to be a little bit longer, do them longer. I wouldn't go any shorter though. Again, always better to have a little bit more than not enough. I have used, or I have learned that lesson the hard way by trying to be more frugal, but it ends up, I have found, wasting much more wire in the long run, even in the short run. Okay, I'm glad I put my little crimp tubes out beforehand. Every once in a while, I get everything prepared the way that I should. So up and around and through, and I'll do this one nice and slow, just so that everybody can see. So I'm leaving a little bit of wiggle room. And again, in the previous videos, we've talked about how important that wiggle room is. And I'm coming here in the very front notch of my crimping pliers, and I'm making that into an oval shape. Then I'm going to come back into the back notch. And this is usually where I kind of zhuzh it up just to make sure I don't have too much space, or too little space for that matter. And I give that a nice little squeeze. Notice I'm not giving any death grips here on my crimps. And then I'm going to come back around in those front jaws. Let's get a nice angle there. And in my front jaws, when I'm doing my squeeze, I am not only doing it on the gentle side, but I'm also rotating my wrist around so that I am getting a nice roundness to my crimp tube. And what am I not doing? I know that there are several beaders in here who know what I'm not doing, which is I am not coming in and smushing that in the front of my pliers. I'm not doing that. All that is going to do is, stay with me friends, ruin the wire. All it's going to do is smush the wires. Nor am I crossing the wires. That is true, because that also really damages the wire and damages that join. But what I'm doing is I'm not giving an extra smush in the front of the crimping jaws. And I will admit it, I'll put my hand to my heart, and I will say that I did do that when I first started beading, before I worked at Beadalon, before I knew any better. But now that I really understand what's going on when I'm doing that crimping, I don't want that to be crossed. When I'm doing the crimping, when I understand really the mechanics of what's happening, I understand that the crimp tube is actually coming around and holding that wire rather than smushing onto that wire. Because again, this is 7 strands of wire that are twisted together and coated with nylon. So if you start smushing them, then they are going to be very unhappy. All right, so now I just want to make sure that this is looped the way that I want it to be looped. And now I'm just going to go ahead and string up some beads, right? No big thing. I'm going to go, let's see, my design is what we affectionately refer to in the office as big bead, little bead. So I'm going to come in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with these 8mm beads from the picture Jasper. I don't know why I have a mental block on that, the name of that. So I'm going to go with slightly bigger beads, right? We used kind of 3-ish and 4-ish millimeters on the bottom, but I'm going to go with slightly bigger beads on the top. And I actually also have slightly bigger of these red bamboo beads. These are 5mm. So I'm going to go I'm really, really making a delightful mess. And the best part of this, and it is not lost on me, is that I moved my beading mat or my beading tray out of frame so that I would have a nice clean background for everybody to be able to be paying attention to what I'm doing. And I'm fully aware that I have created a great big beading mess again. But you know what? A great big beading mess is the sign of a good beading project or something like that, right? So let's see. I am just going to very quickly string these all up. We'll do one side and finish off the one side. I'm not sure we really need to see me doing big bead, little bead on everything. And I kind of like also for the holiday season, this subtle difference, right? So the first project has this gold, red, and white palette, which is a very, not very, but it's a non-traditional, let's say, holiday palette. So too is this red, gold, and blue gold palette. It's just it's neat to bring different colors in, and it's also nice to see what different colors look like next to each other. Sometimes, and part of the reason why it's so wonderful to teach so many classes for this Michael's Community Classroom is being challenged to use colors that I'm not necessarily drawn to, right? I mean, you guys know that because you see them over and over again, that this blue and brown bead that's my jam. But it was suggested to try a different color palette. And so I tried this cream gold and red, and I really like that as well. But since I challenged myself again to try still yet another color palette, I would not necessarily have put these colors together, but I'm kind of digging it. And with the right shirt, it could really be very festive for a party. At some point, I'm going to run out of these Jasper beads, and it's going to be a very sad day for me. I was lucky enough to stock up when Michael's was having one of their wonderful bead sales. And I was like, well, I know I'm going to use them eventually. I may as well just buy them all. And so I did. I know that statement doesn't speak to any of you out there, I'm sure. But I have used them for sure. All right, so I'm getting to my end right here, and I'm noticing that I might recommend making this side a little bit longer, because this is going to end up being, let's measure this out. It's going to end up being about 14, 15 inches. So a little shorter than maybe I was paying attention to. But I think we're still going to be in good shape. I always like to end my designs with a small bead, both for form and for function. So ending with a large bead makes it fiddlier to do your crimping. It makes it more likely that your crimp tube is going to slip back down into the hole, because oftentimes large hole beads have larger holes. And I think also just for the aesthetics of the design, it looks nicer to have a small bead on the end. And for this design, I'm just using a simple hook and eye clasp because I had them in gold, and because they are super easy to use. You could, if you were making this adjustable, which is always a great idea, especially if it's for a gift, instead of doing the figure 8 on the other side, you could do some chain. So some nice big chunky chain. Right, to see if I have some, and in fact I do. It's actually my left that I was looking, but this chain is really good for doing adjustable necklaces. You can all you do is you would crimp your wire to one side of that chain, and you could even do a similar dangle on the other side. And since my wire is just a little bit too short, you can watch me fiddle with it. This is one of the bonuses for class today, how to get your wire through a crimp if it's just a little too short. And that's how you do it. You just kind of feed it through for as much as you possibly can, and pull through with the end of your pliers. Another really good tip added in by one of our viewers is saying that small beads also make it a little bit more comfortable on the end, which is true. Now, I do want to point out, I'm just going to pull my camera up just a little bit and move some of this stuff out of the way. When you are crimping, you do not want to pull this up and pull this down. It's a little bit challenging to show what I'm doing here, but you don't want to tighten this up as tight as humanly possible. And see how my wire is buckling a little bit because I have it tightened up way too tight. That can sometimes be tempting to do, but please don't do that. What you actually want to do when you are crimping is build in a little bit of give, a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of a place that the beads can find some freedom. I find the easiest way to do that is to create kind of a bracelet shape or a circle shape to make sure that those beads are not giving each other, the wire or the crimp, any undue stress or undue pressure. None of us want any undue stress or undue pressure, right? Our beads don't want it either. One of the questions that we get asked most often in the Beadalon world is, my wire broke, what happened? Generally, the answer is that it was crimped, it was strung and then crimped too tight. What happens is this wire is twisted, right? It's stranded together, all these strands of wire, and then twisted together. And if there's too much pressure on that wire, much like too much pressure on our soles, we are likely to break. So too will the wire break. So you always want to just add in that extra little bit of wiggle room, that extra little bit of zhuzhing, so that the wire doesn't have any reason to push back on you. That is the best tip that I can give for your jewelry lasting as long as it can. All right, so the second half of the pendant, of the necklace, would of course be done the same way. We would add all of the beads around, big bead, little bead, or you can do any pattern of your choosing, right? You don't have to do big bead, little bead. You can do anything you want. This one I actually did littler beads on the very end. So much like one of our viewers was saying, little beads on even more of the end can definitely make that a more comfortable experience on the back of your neck. And if you're like me and you have long hair that you wear down, no one will ever know. Could have anything back here. Sometimes I actually will do just seed beads in the back because it saves beads, right? And it saves beads. And it's also a little bit more comfortable sometimes if you just put those seed beads in the back. But you can see how nice and drapey this necklace is. It has not been strung too tight because, again, by stringing it too tight, it's going to put too much stress and strain on that necklace. So you can see two different colorways, two slightly different sizes, right? This one's a little bit bigger than this one, for two really different looks and two wonderful different outfit choices and two wonderful different gift giving opportunities as well. So that is it for class today. That was a good one. So now you can go ahead and take that forward facing camera as I say goodbye to everybody really quickly. It has been wonderful having everybody in class today. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for almost an hour, learning some basics, but some different ways of putting together the basics. This is it for me for Michael's classes for the rest of December and the rest of the year. Sarah Ellis will be teaching next year. next week. And then we'll have a couple of weeks off for the holidays. So I want to take this opportunity and thank each and every one of you for hanging out with me today and throughout these past couple of years, for all of these wonderful classes. It's been wonderful getting to know you. I always appreciate the comments and the good questions that come through as I'm going on. You guys keep me in check, and I very much appreciate it. I wish everybody, whatever you celebrate, wherever you are in the world and in life, a wonderful holiday season, a happy and healthy new year. We will be back in January with more classes. We have a lot of really fun things on tap and that we're developing right now for Beadalon and for Michaels. If you make this project today, please be sure to post it on your socials and use the hashtag Beadalon. Also use the hashtag MakeItWithMichaels. And please tag me. I'm Meredith Joy Designs on Instagram, and it fills my heart with happiness and love each and every time I see something that somebody has made as being inspired by one of my classes. So I very, very much appreciate it. And I think that's enough thank yous for today before I start getting really choked up and emotional about this wonderful opportunity that I have been given to be able to hang out with all of you wonderful BD friends for so long. So I will close up and wrap up there. And until next time, happy beading.